Interview with Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead. Interviewer Howard Rheingold. Date April 16th, 1991. For publication in Interview Magazine. Howard Rheingold may be reached at 415-388-3912 or 415-332-1716. I'm just to start them both, and we don't have to get crazy.
So he doesn't know anything that we don't know. We know that this is an interview. Way to go! You just turned it off. You just broke it.
No, we're rolling.
Sure?
Okay, so this is me. I'm the interviewer, Howard.
Yes, okay.
And Jerry is
I'm
over
Jerry,
here.
This is me.
I'm Bobby.
And Bobby's over here.
Yeah.
Interview is doing an issue on families.
Yeah.
And so when they thought about, well, let's get a musical group, or let's do something about music, Grateful Dead is what they thought of.
Okay.
So they aren't particularly interested in anything that's along the lines of regular stuff you read in dumb interviews with the Grateful Dead. What is there that can be said about family that you guys know that would be interesting and surprising to interview readers?
Well, as families go, one thing about us is, as families go, we have all the dynamics of a family. If you took a bunch of people and adopted them and raised them, you'd have nothing different than what we are.
Yeah.
What we are.
Essentially.
We're not related through blood, but we're related through shared experience that has depth far beyond what most families have, because we live a life that has depth of experience that goes a lot deeper than most people ever get to. And then secondly, we've been together, firstly, we've been together much longer than most families stay together. I mean,
that's true.
And we live together, we've lived together on top of each other at times for approaching 27 years now.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
in close quarters.
That's right.
Yeah, and emotional or intellectual or physical, but close quarters in all those areas.
And we've had people born and people die, and we've had all the things that that blood families have, and like Bob says, more intense in a way. And also, our family has that same thing that blood families have, in that you don't really choose who your family is. You know what I mean? It's like, you get them. And that's what you get.
You get them on account of that's how it works out.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of some mechanism that's along those same lines that has us as a family. I know that my relationship with the Grateful Dead family is way closer than anything that I've got with any of my blood relatives, such as they are. I rarely see them. I don't. In fact, my brother is a member of my family because he works in the Grateful Dead community more than the fact that he's my blood brother. He's part of that world. Otherwise, I would never see him.
Well, something happens, like in any family that works. Although, in a sense, there aren't any families that work as well as this one does.
Well, it's a family that works, and I think I don't know how hard other people work at it, but we work at it. We do work at it.
Okay, that's an interesting question, because American families don't work.
Well,
there is an illusion that they do.
Yeah, it used to be that probably the economics of the family was important, like the family subsistence farm kind of deal. where you and your wife went out to the land somewhere, and you knew that you weren't going to be able to make it work unless you had 5 strong boys.
Right.
So you had 10 kids, that'd be the family.
Right.
The strong boys would be out there doing the hard work, and the women would be doing the women work, the canning and putting stuff up and so forth.
In fact, probably you'd have your brother and sister-in-law and a couple of nuclear the nuclear family really wasn't happening.
No, I don't think
more
so.
Extended
It was the extended family, because I think that was the sort of economic, that was what you needed to survive.
That was in agrarian America, and there was a nuclear family that was happening in urban or suburban America.
Right, in industrial America.
Well, the Industrial Revolution took the father out of the home.
Right.
And put the kids in school.
That's right.
And then everyone had their own little scene.
Right, that was I think that was probably the breakup of the dynamics of the family the family as a sensible unit of civilization.
Well, it was a new form for the family for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it's quintessentially American to transform your family.
Yeah,
and there's somewhere and the Grateful Dead is quintessentially American in a certain way, in that to become an American, you left the old ways behind.
Yeah.
And you became born again into this new thing that was always pushing further, and you made yourself. There's this kind of classic American vision of Thornton Wilder, turn of the century family,
right.
Beaver Cleaver,
Our Town, right?
Our Town, the Cleavers, and then 1960 something. Everyone sort of left their family and started making other families.
Now I guess there's a popular resurgence in between the coasts, where the American model nuclear family is attempting a comeback, and I guess there was a working model. For some reason, it did work for most of a century, where you had the Cleaver family, for instance, as a model, and
dad out working, mom at home,
and all that kind of stuff, and the kids are raised up for like 15 years.
That probably actually didn't last all that long at all, really.
Well, don't you think the reason that we're also fascinated with the Cleavers is because we knew that was going to blow? This was like the last frame of that illusion.
Yeah, well, that was all they could do to keep those kids in.
Right. Ward, I'm worried about the beaver.
Right.
That's like the classic line.
Right,
of course he's worried about the beaver.
Sure.
He's about to move to San Francisco and blow his mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where everything, you watch the show, everything, Ozzie and Harriet's the same way, everything's going tick, 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 and those kids in Ozzie and Harriet's family, there's a classic illustration of what happened to the American nuclear family when the 60s finally did roll around.
Yeah.
Those kids, those happy little, those smiling little cherubs went way weird.
Right.
So there's sort of stepping back to look at what the interview readers can read here, there's sort of a paradox happening in that I think Grateful Dead to these people means, wow, this kind of strange, anachronistic, anarchistic scene. Whereas in fact, America, in terms of family, is a strange, anachronistic, not very workable scene.
No.
So to get way back to what you said, what is it that you do to work on it that makes it work?
From what I can see, our family situation is more or less modeled after like old style big families like you would find in Mexico or in Spain or in Europe or something like that, where you have a paterfamilias. In our case, I would say the paterfamilias would probably be Neil Cassidy.
Yeah, right.
He's gone now, and there was this myth, this icon that's come up that Jerry here is, but it doesn't really work like that. Our group dynamics we're brothers, we're all siblings, we're all underlings to probably to this guy Neil Cassidy, who was.
That's interesting.
He, if anything, he was a father figure to me and for the rest of us as well. He wasn't a sibling he didn't feel like a sibling.
No, he was definitely a parent.
He had a guiding hand, though. It was
Good and strange.
Good and strange.
I mean, a laissez-faire parent. But a parent nonetheless. A parent nonetheless by illustration. He provided a model for something about how far you could take yourself, kind of. And he also represented the thing of the individual outside of everything, in a way. There's this guy. Did you hear about this guy? This is an aside. Did you hear about this guy that's doing an annotated Neil Cassidy? That's taking like Neil Cassidy's rap at the Straight Theater when we were playing that time, and taking everything that Neil says and annotating, actually researching everything that he's referring to, and annotating everything that he refers to. In the space of like 5 minutes, there's like 50 references. Right, to Rilke's poetry, or to the Penguin edition of Jack Kerouac that he's got in his pocket.
Right.
And he's got a penguin in his pocket, he says, first thing.
Well, did he have something to do with your realizing that you were coming together into something?
He helped solidify it, yeah. It's hard to describe exactly how, because we all had different. It's like we all saw different aspects in Neil. He showed different aspects of himself to everybody, And he had that thing of being able to refer to lots and lots of different things in one conversation. Keep lots of levels going. Some of them you knew about, some of them you didn't know about. But there would be a continuity there. Each time that you talked to him, he would pick up from where you left off last time you'd seen him, even if it had been months.
If there was something on your mind, if you had a problem or an observation or something, you bring it to Dad. You'd bring it to Neil. If there was something on your mind, you'd bounce it off him.
Yeah.
And it sure as hell would bounce.
Yeah. And so he filled that role of that thing of where so who do you go to for advice? Ask Dad.
So Dad is gone.
Dad's got that. And so in the fashion of families, those nuclear families, the old world style, or old style, not just old world, but like Asian families, the big Asian families, whatever. You live by more or less in your own adapted way, following the guy's footsteps.
How would Dad have done this?
Right, something like that. Yeah, right. Filtered through all other experiences that have been subsequent,
And then slowly you become your own man.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were pretty young when you met him, right?
Oh yeah, early 20s. Well, he was in his teens.
I was
but the rest
in
of
my
us,
teens.
we were all malleable, young and but even he existed for us as a. Before that, he was the guy speaking to us from pages of Kerouac.
That's right. Me too.
Right.
And for Kerouac, he was this kid who exemplified something happening.
Right. He was a breeze, some kind of incredible, super American mythos personality blasting through the highways of 1947 America.
Yes, and 1947 America blasted off.
Yes.
And it blasted off so successfully that there's an illusion that it didn't happen.
Right.
Like people reading Interview magazine think, well, these guys were they're a remnant of something that happened once. But what happened once actually turned everything inside out.
That's right.
We're living in it.
America is more a reflection. I mean, America owes more to that period of time than it realizes, I think,
Well,
culturally.
it's still working, and it's still working right well for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
you know, basically Neil was the hood ornament on the Chrome Zephyr that came floating through, or not floating, but wafting, shall we say, through American culture.
Well, you guys have a road show part of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a road show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a one-man road show.
I mean, it's not, you know, like you don't choose your family. You show up there. You know, you get there. And it's the same thing happened with us. We were cut of that mold. We were made for the road, and so it's not particularly surprising that we fell in more or less under the auspices.
No, we partly chose
Under
it,
the
and they
aegis
partly
of
chose us.
Yeah, right. But you have managed to keep it rolling.
Well,
into new
that's the thing, is
places.
the life itself drags you into it. I mean, so now our kids are express some. You know, they have their view of the family dynamics. You know what I mean? They're
What's that?
well, it's that they're used to thinking of themselves as people who are part of a large group. I mean, my kids think of Bob as a relative. He's not.
Uncle
Yeah,
Bob.
he's not. You know,
So, I mean,
friend
we
of
all
dad's
have
or
sort of-
something like that. You know.
It's like the families before are on the other side of a membrane. But
Yeah.
you're saying that the kids of this family, that membrane isn't there. that
No, it's not.
They're not
for them,
leaving
it's
this.
normal.
Yeah.
For them, this is normal, you know. So our way of doing things and our way of relating and everything is normal. That's
They're Neil's grandchildren.
yeah, and they also express themselves in their own ways. They have inherited the tradition of self-invention, you know. So it's
Okay, self-invention.
yeah.
Families, you know, the phrase family values is one that has a particular meaning to one group of people. Obviously, you're talking about a family value is self-invention in this family.
Yeah, it is.
What are some others?
Geez, it's hard to. Well, mostly.
Non-interference.
Yeah, non-interference, right. That's a biggie.
We will not impose ourselves over each other, even in extreme situations.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. It's something that people think, well, families interfere with each other.
Dynamic benign neglect.
Yeah,
Dynamic,
dynamic
benign
benign
neglect.
neglect.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's for us. It's mainly been the thing of of what works, and since we've been doing this, going a certain way, things pop up, and if they work, you incorporate them unconsciously almost. If they don't work, you discard them almost equally unconsciously. You know, it's just if something doesn't work, it becomes real obvious immediately. You know, how to say no.
How do you, if you're non-interfering and you have to live at close quarters under intense
The world has to
circumstances,
tell us. In other words, we don't have an agenda or a battle plan or a map or a direction or anything. You know what I mean? We're just going along, and it's telling us. And so things come up from the outside. The outside world says, okay, you have to do this. You have to go here and here, and here's your options. You can be here or you can be here. You can do this or you can do this. You can go here or you can go there. So each one of those things becomes a little place, a point of decision. And the way we make decisions is that we all get together, and if somebody doesn't feel right about it, it doesn't seem to sit right, usually we'll go with the no vote. You know what I mean? If somebody's not comfortable with it, we'll figure it's not going to be worth doing, because when
You
it
have
comes
to drag somebody. It's too
yeah,
much work.
if you have to drag, yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right. If you have to drag somebody, it's too much work. The only way things work around here is that if everybody wants it to work, if everybody wants to work, then it has a prayer. Even then, there's no guarantee, but at least it has a prayer. If there's anybody who's going to drag their feet or who's going to say, no, this is not going to be right, you don't want to, it's pointless to enter into something knowing that that's
Right.
there. You know what I mean? It's because it's doomed from the start.
If you want to promote anything, all the work that you put into it is basically promoting the idea of it so that people will go for it, and if they don't go for it, you can't institute it. You can't do it.
Well, that's very Japanese. They have this thing called nemawashi, which is the root washing is what the phrase means is you wash the roots very carefully before you plant. So in Japanese organizations, before you have a meeting, and you've got an idea that you want to get across, you go talk to everyone and enlist them. And then the meeting, you don't do it American style where everyone gets up and advocates and conflicts and decides. You get up and formalize agreement.
Our approach
Stuff is born of committee in this family. You know, ideas come from a little committee that forms. It may be that several of us are riding in the same car.
Yeah, and we'll just start brainstorming.
And something will come up, and hey, we were thinking on the way over to the gig, and then you have a slightly larger committee, and then when you have enough of them together, then you have something rolling, then you bring it to a board meeting or something like that.
Well, because you are a business. You do have meetings, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, just
formal and informal.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, the state insists that we be a business.
Right.
So we've learned to act a business.
And like any family, the family gets together around the dinner table and kicks stuff around, and we don't all eat together and stuff like that. So it serves us well to have our board meetings are not exactly run, strictly in accordance to Hoyle and all that kind of stuff. But we get a lot of stuff covered, philosophical as well as nuts and bolts. Like for instance, in a board meeting, if you have an idea, it'd be damn well ought to be a real good idea. You're not going to get everybody's attention because there's a whole lot of other horseshit that's going on at the same time. People have got to bicker at each other. People have got to, just bullshit with each other, and they can be a lot of fun, or they can be real frustrating. These board meetings. The ones where there are a lot of business are a lot like work, and everybody can't wait to get out of them. But some of them, when we don't have a whole lot of business to attend to, that we absolutely have to get dispensed with, we can stay in a board meeting for 4 or 5 hours and cover a very few points, but get a lot done.
Yeah.
Just in terms of firing stuff back and forth at each other and bullshitting, having a good time.
Yeah.
A theme will come up, whether it has anything to do with anything we're ever going to do, or it's just fun for the moment.
Yes, sometimes the general directionality, comes up. Like we might be discussing something. Say some problem has come up having to do with, say, ticket sales or something like that. We're having trouble with somebody making counterfeit tickets or something like that, and that might lead us to a discussion of ticket prices, and then a discussion of sort of market ethics, and then larger ethics. The ethics of tribe to community to what are we, a service organization, or what are we providing here, and so forth and so forth, and things branch out like that. It kind of just a free flow, but it might lead us into lots of areas that we might otherwise never bother defining.
Okay, let me set up a little straw man here.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's true, but
Yeah.
from the point of view of someone who comes and sees your shows,
Yeah.
you are a service organization.
Yeah.
You are providing something.
Yeah.
You're providing music, of course.
Absolutely.
That's the center of it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
You're also providing a context for other people's families.
Absolutely. Well,
I mean, there's the Grateful Dead family, and there are Grateful Dead families.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
they meet at the moment where the
We
music
are
happens.
part of a larger community, which is the community of deadheads. You know. And-
Well, it's a sort of a feud. It's not so neo-feudal. It's pretty much straight feudal scene. Whereby we're a service organization. A family like this 100 years ago, or even now, for instance, in say Malaysia, if we were ranchers, let's say we were ranchers 200 years ago in old California, we would have we'd be a service organization of sorts. We'd be providing beef, hides, and tallow. For a lot of people, and incidentally, there would be our individual families at this point, because we'd have had a couple hundred or 100 years or so to split up the huge ranch into ranchettes.
Right.
So we're supporting our own families, and then beyond that, there are the people who work under us. The Indians, for instance, and all that kind of stuff, who we're responsible for. The top, the nucleus of the family is responsible in the end for the people that they never see. Like, for instance, the people that we never see are the T-shirt vendors, or the people who follow us around, who incidentally make their living off of what we do. We have to make controls over them so that they don't get out of line, so that they don't make it impossible for us to continue to travel and do what we do.
Yeah, because we are not completely autonomous. At some point or another, our boundaries run into the boundaries of the exterior reality as they're running it out there.
Right.
So we run into the law. I mean, the things that we don't own and
Or the weather.
don't have control over, or the weather, yes.
Well,
Stuff that we have no control over.
Like way back when, with the old model, we had to make sure that the Indians who planted the corn or whatever, kept our gardens going and stuff like that, were adequately fed and sheltered and seen to, so that they could continue to work happily for us, which in turn means that they're working for the nuclear family.
Well, a lot of the people who show up, who are increasingly part of a problem. I mean, the problem is that communities in a lot of America, as you know, are pretty nailed down tight.
Yeah.
And when you come to town, it represents, all those weird kids who want to get into chaos and crack that stuff up, and they're normally controlled. Here's a context where they can get together, and they're sick of their old family.
Right.
They've got this real hunger for, okay, I don't have a ticket to this show, but I can go hang out.
Right.
And then there are the people for whom that represents a big threat.
That's true. Well,
And they come into conflict. But at the center of it, don't you think that there's it's a desire for something that's hard to find?
Well, America
Which is a
doesn't
kind of
have enough
community.
stuff that speaks to the whole person. I mean, people need something to celebrate, and they need a context in which to celebrate things. They need something that fills the void that's left by the bankruptcy of religion and so forth. They need real. Joe Campbell used to talk about this stuff, and there's a need for a ritual, and for real joy and real bliss, real fun.
And there always have been small road shows.
Yeah.
provide that, and they're always regarded by the local authorities
with
as,
some suspicion.
with a lot of suspicion.
Yeah, right.
And they always have a kind. I mean, it's if you're going to keep a show like that on the road, then you sort of have to have a. It can't just be a business; it has to be kind of a family.
Well, you have to take it more seriously than that. You have to address some of those areas of responsibility. So that's part of it. Becomes part of what our responsibility then starts to cover. So we have to start communicating. Now, see, by now we've been on the road enough. We've been doing this enough where we're like an institution. And we come to town, but we're not something that blows in once and robs everybody blind and that's gone forever. We come. They know we're going to come back next year, or we're going to come back within 6 months or something. So we've become something more than that in a way. We've gotten to be
well recognizable. They know
Yeah.
how to deal with us.
right. So with the recognition comes additional responsibility, because then we're no longer a one shot. You know, we're now part of the environment. We may only be part of the environment once every 6 months, but we are part of it.
Right.
And if we have if there are many deadheads in town or whatever, we represent a sizable amount of influence there. Some towns we bring in enough money to keep the town from falling over. You know, we provide enough economic strength for that weekend or whatever it is that just pushes that community over its what it needs. You know, there's enough people buying.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Monterey just lost $1 billion a year with Fort Ord.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you think they'll let you go back to Laguna Seca?
I think they've gone. I think they're gone because
Start thinking about it,
I think our biggest problem down there was the army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the local merchants didn't have a great need to have some money come into
No, they
town.
had
once
the
in a
army
while.
there. You know. Yeah. So
I think, well, we have some assumptions here that maybe we should clarify, make more explicit for people reading this, which is that when you go to a show, there's, 7 guys on stage or 6 guys on stage. There's a lot of people involved.
yes.
There's, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people that are involved in
At least 3 dozen in terms of the whole show. Oh, there's at least 3 dozen because
I think
there's
there's 40 people.
40 people,
Well,
and
that's-
of those 40 people, a lot of them go back 10, 20 or more years. Is that
a
right?
good many of them have been there quite a long time. Yeah, most of them at least 10 years. I mean,
So this is a fairly large family of people who.
well, yes, not all of those people are
Tied-in family.
right. Not a lot of them are tied in. Some of them are parts of other organizations that they're like cousins.
Right.
They're like cousins in a way. Like Bill Graham's organization are like cousins to us in a way. They've worked with us enough where they know what we're like. They know, and they also have had to create positive relationships with people in our family.
And they have a family too. And
Yeah.
just like in you know, in that model of larger families on holidays and stuff like that, or special occasions, we have little fiestas, you know, where our family and their families will everybody will get together, everybody will dress up nice, and you know, we'll have a little party.
Yeah, a little blowout.
A big.
Do you have like
Bill
a
Graham's
regular
place or something
annual,
Well,
or
there's a
There's a
regular.
couple of regular, more or less regular annuals.
Yeah.
is it like Thanksgiving and Christmas, or
Sometimes
is it
that's
something
only
else?
Thanksgiving, sometimes Christmas. You know,
Well,
and
Christmas every year, just
for us, the big
one.
one is New Year's Eve.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in terms of that's the one that pulls in the most. It's when we're working, but it's also an awful lot of people use New Year's Eve as their annual check-in.
Uh-huh.
You know, to the whole Grateful Dead family thing, and that's particularly family members, people who used to be in the business and
Right.
who aren't anymore, and ex-friends. You know what I mean?
So
stuff like
when the
that,
show
you know.
is over, you will expect to see a lot of people that
Oh, you don't
only
have time
seen on
actually
New
to
Year's.
even say hello to all the people that are there. You don't even have time.
Uh-huh.
Really,
I mean, even if we weren't playing and we were just steady shaking
you
hands
still wouldn't have time.
and hi, how are you, and all that kind of stuff, the number of people that
Well,
I'm sure
that's
that you really
also
would like to visit with,
yeah.
you're not going to get around to.
And that it's almost a rich. Is like a ritual thing, you know, more than you know, us like soulful getting down together. It's just way too many people. But it's one of those things that gives people strength. You know, it provides people with a lot of strength. Just even if they just come and say hello, you know, once a year on New Year's Eve to check in and see what it's doing, and it's for some people it's important.
Yes, a lot of deadheads, as you know, are fanatic about making it to New Year's Eve because they've always made it to New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And their faces there, that's the only time they see them.
That's right.
And then they go back to their lives, and
Yeah.
they're in all kinds of places, doing all kinds of
All
things.
kinds.
But there's a certain family that they see for 6 or 7 hours on New Year's Eve.
And they're
It has
part of that family.
a really strong importance.
Absolutely.
And although a lot of the families are not related to one another, it does kind of melt into one thing at
Yeah, they
some
do,
point.
and they also think of themselves as their own relatives in a way. They think of themselves as a group.
Yeah.
You know, even though they're disparate, there's all different kinds of them. They think of themselves as deadheads. You know, which is an important part of their self-identification in their lives, regardless of whether they're professionals, lawyers, or doctors. There's all kinds of them, brain surgeons, you know, physicists. I mean, you know, the kind of this vast spread in the deadhead world. You know?
Well, I think that comes as a surprise to people, probably comes as a surprise to the readers of this magazine, that of the spread of people who are in this family in the extended sense.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part, the ones that catch your eye are the ones that are basically people who live on the road and follow us around. They're a small percentage of the audience, but they're quite visible. The ones who aren't visible are the stockbrokers, lawyers, doctors, housewives who. You know, the stockbrokers, their hair isn't long and full of leaves and stuff like that, so they don't catch your eye. They're wearing the tie-dye so they don't stick out, and but you don't see them. The ones you see are the ones with the leaves in their hair.
Right.
You know, matted hair and all that kind of stuff. But that's only a few of them. Those are just the highly visible ones, and in that audience, the bulk of them are people who don't look like that every day.
Yeah.
So don't you think that's part of the whole semiotics, iconography, is if you've got a little decal on your car that's got a little wheel and roses, nobody except those people in that particular extended family know what the heck that's about.
That's true.
And you identify, it's sort of like the Masons or whatever. You identify yourself to one another in unusual circumstances.
Like the old Christian symbol that you would draw with your foot in the dirt while you were talking to somebody. You'd draw that fish thing.
Yeah.
That fish symbol, and if they noticed it, if they knew what they were looking at, then they knew that you were one of them.
I mean, I'm sure you've all had this experience. It's completely unexpected people.
Absolutely.
I went to buy a car, and the car salesman was a classic car salesman guy.
Right.
What did he notice? Something offbeat. Tie-dye sneakers.
Right.
He immediately knew that if he talked a little Grateful Dead talk,
Right.
it would elevate this transaction
Sure.
to another level.
Well, it gains a level of intimacy. That's an example. That's an expression of larger families. And that's
intimacy, shared values.
Yeah.
Also, in a different sense, the amount of intensity that you've got to go to get your act together every time is shared to some degree by everyone else who shows up.
That's exactly right.
Getting there intact, getting home intact.
Right.
Okay, we've done it. It's a shared, it's the Joseph Campbell, it's your little tiny hero's journey in everyday life.
It's your rite of passage.
And it's hard to find.
I use the war stories metaphor too, which is
right.
It's part of the adventures that shape our character and give us stuff to talk about.
And where do you get adventures anymore?
Hard to get. There's almost no place.
I mean, we have a society that's trying to make sure that nobody gets any adventures because adventures are dangerous.
Yeah.
And danger is bad.
Yeah.
And I mean nobody's ever the rule is not written anywhere. It's not etched in any. But I mean that's the prevailing attitude of this entire society. Danger is bad. Oh no, don't do that. Don't have an adventure. That's dangerous.
Right.
And I mean your parents are always trying to get you to be careful when you were a kid, and that's just it's pervasive, all pervasive in this society. And there's a certain ilk, there's a certain kind of person who just can't live life like that.
No, everybody needs adventure, and everybody needs something.
Maybe
to
not everybody does. I don't know, but I do.
I think an awful lot of people do. I mean, maybe not everybody.
Well,
really
some people think that that's what's attractive to men about warfare. Is where else do you find people where you absolutely know you can trust them?
Yeah.
Because you have.
We have to.
And all of that is, everything is removed. You get on you're actually doing something dangerous when you get in your car.
Yeah.
When you're getting on an airplane.
Oh.
Sex.
All of life.
Everything is dangerous.
Dangerous.
But we pretend that it's not.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. That's
right.
True.
But to willingly participate in an adventure which has danger, that has to do with getting together with your fellows to celebrate,
right,
has a certain fraternity to it,
That's
which
true.
I think
crazy
irradiates in all directions.
The International Brotherhood of Crazies, because the pervasive attitude is that it's crazy to invite more danger into your life.
Yeah, right.
And we don't look at it like that. We're just inviting adventure into our life, and adventure carries a little baggage.
Yeah, that's right.
But most people, from what I can see, make the logical step that you're inviting adventure, you're inviting danger, and inviting danger is crazy. And so you have what we have is this International Brotherhood of Crazies.
That's right. Who have met? That works.
Yeah.
Because there are all kinds of craziness that we've all seen, which has destructed and fallen apart along the way.
Well, we're hoping that it works. I mean, we're involved in a society which is undergoing some really weird changes now. Right now, America is under the gun. It's being tested. I think, and the Constitution is being co-opted in a big way. And this whole thing of the war and all this stuff, it's just, I think that America is in danger of losing its adventurous spirit in the cause of some kind of illusion of safety or,
And I'd like to point out...
substitute law and order there. Or
right.
whatever.
I'd like to point out that over the years we've lost a few. But our... if you look at our our stats, we haven't lost any more than any other large group.
Hell yeah!
And by and large, the people in our group, in our family, are enjoying life a fair bit more than most other people.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have cultural depth. We can you know, we get all kinds of stuff to chew on, to live on.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Our lives are interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot there to enlarge you. Yeah. That's part of the value of being in a family, being in an extended family, is that it's an enlarging. It enlarges you. It makes you bigger. It makes you more.
Yeah, everybody has something to bring to the table.
Yeah. And that's one of the big advantages. That and the thing of support, having some sense.
The bulk of my input comes from my peers. You know, I don't get the stuff that I carry around in my head from TV, and especially I don't get the stuff that I carry around in my heart from TV. From what the president says or what my pastor says. I get it from my brothers, from my family, and everybody in the family is so way different from the way I am that they're just bound to bring different stuff under my nose.
Yeah, that's the other great thing, is the thing of being able to see things through many points of view. And that's enlarging. I mean, it saves you ultimately from the boredom of having one point of view, which can be really boring. You know, being locked in a room with nothing but your own point of view, your own references.
right, which does tend to happen to musicians on the road.
It happens to a lot of people. Sure, it's yeah. You need the thing of having many references, you know, many places to touch down and to make contact with.
And so, unlike I guess other bands on the road, for instance, rather than watching our television, when we come into a given town, we've almost invariably end up talking to the television.
Yeah.
And and people watch us on television. Because the people in that medium have decided that we are interesting. So at least we don't. We may not get a lot from TV, but we do give some.
Well, let's see. The only thing I can recall from anyone in the Grateful Dead on television that comes to mind at the moment is the transportation business remark. Do you remember that? Which is somebody, was it Mickey? I think so. So that's what do you and these Tibetan monks have in common? And he said we're both in the transportation business.
Right.
And I guess music in general is the transportation business.
Yeah. We'd like to hope it is, yeah, sure. At its best levels, yeah, it is. Also, that's another thing, too. The nature of what we're doing is something which is, by its very nature, it's non-formulaic, you know. There's no way that you can make it happen by intention alone. It's something that you have to sort of allow it to happen, and you have to allow for it to happen. You know what I mean? It's not something you can force into existence. And the kind of music we're doing is it's experimental. And largely, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know what it's going to be like. We don't know anything about it except that we recognize it when it's the way it ought to be, and we recognize it when it's not the way it ought to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So apart from that, it's an intuitive walk. You know, it's something you have to feel your way through it. You can't say, well, last time we played, I did this and this and this and this and this, and so everything worked out real good. It doesn't work that way. Nothing.
So how come it's not working this time?
No amount of you can't repeat things because the time is different. The universe has changed. Everything has changed, and so each time you go out and with this idea, you have to learn it all over again from the ground up because it's a new time, it's a new experience, and consequently, everything that you know about it, you have to disallow. It's new. So some things may work, some things, but they definitely won't work each time. Some things may work various times, but
Sometimes
nothing.
the magic works and sometimes it doesn't.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was
But this is
consistent.
this is yet another of our family
Values?
Values.
Yeah, it's
Is that you don't know when it's going to work,
yeah, and
you
you
can't
make
make it work.
It's not a matter of
but
will.
you show up and you recognize it when it happens.
And you allow for the possibility that it could work.
Right.
You allow for the possibility that it could have something miraculous could happen.
You invest a little faith in the process.
Yeah. Which I think is real.
Martin Buber says if you have both will and
Booby
grace.
baby.
Will and grace.
Will and grace.
You can't grace you have nothing to do with.
Right.
But showing up, and maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't.
Right.
But grace isn't enough.
No,
you
it's not
gotta
enough.
intend.
Yeah.
You gotta intend to be there when it's
You need a
happening.
certain amount of will there. Will is not alone is not enough to make it happen, but it's definitely a requirement. It needs to be there. You need to be willing a certain amount of, For us in the band, it's like bardos. It's just each element that away from each thing that has to do with the individual and his relationship to his instrument and to the music is like a series of things that you go to, and you get to the level now where the whole band is now at one level, and then there's new levels you go to, and you know what I mean?
Yes.
But each one, you have to go through each step each time.
Sometimes it takes will, and sometimes it takes abandoning will.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes it takes innocence. Sometimes it takes guile. Sometimes you have to be clever.
Well, okay, so now it's a little family on the stage that people can see.
Yeah. Well, they see. The thing is, the audience participates in this process
Yes.
with us, so they know it the way we know it.
Yes.
They know that it's exploratory, and that it's you coax and you squirm and you wheedle and you fool around and do all this. And you try all these different things, and things start coming together, and you feel it coming, and stuff like that, and then as the closer you get, you go yeah. Sometimes it never does quite.
Sometimes
focus
that's
down.
a huge amble,
Right.
Just on top on the lid, and it's not going anywhere.
Right.
And sometimes you walk on the stage, and from the first note, the afterburner kicks in, and you
Right.
can't
Right.
stop it.
Right. Either way, it's not about control.
Right.
So then you can infer from that since it's not about control, then that the whole way of doing things validates itself. So the whole thing of incorporating, like the way that we go about making music and doing what we're doing, it becomes a model for let's try doing it so that we do our business the same way. So our meetings in some way, in a way, hopefully reflect some of that process. We carry that process over into other parts of your life because it's a viable, workable way of doing things, although it doesn't sit well in the Western concept because it lacks specific causality. You know what I mean?
Well, the Western model for a meeting is you have an agenda and you come in and everyone says things.
Right.
Sounds to me that what you're saying in terms of how the metaphor of what happens on stage extends to what happens in a meeting is that you listen for it, and you don't know what it really sounds like
Well, the
until you
agenda is
hear
a
it.
useful idea. It's nice to have an agenda because it's nice. For us, an agenda is kind of like songs.
Right.
So if here's our agenda. We can do this song, this song, this song, and this song. So we try this song a little bit. This item on the agenda. If it's not happening, if we're not getting anywhere, well, we'll go to another item on the agenda.
Is side 2 of Grateful Dead interview by Howard Rheingold, 4/16/91. Perfect. You'll see in this issue of Whole Earth Review that Gore Vidal says that
I like Garcia.
he knows a lot of the inside tricks.
Yeah, he sure does.
he said the joker in the deck of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution was pursuit of happiness.
Right.
And that is what has kept America juicy in the sense.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. I mean, to me, that's the key thing, the pursuit of happiness. That's it, you know, shit. That's the basic, ultimate, basically the freedom, you know. Yeah.
Well, so is
Such
this
a broad idea. I don't know whether that actually is not part of anything. See, the thing is that the pursuit of happiness is an overview kind of thing, and it's not in the Bill of Rights. It doesn't say anything about the pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness is so large of a concept, but you know, I mean.
Well, essentially what it's saying is the default is you can go and try and find whatever that is.
Yeah, that's
as long as you don't bump into
you don't hurt anybody.
One of these constraints,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the other point of view, which is this is what's allowed.
Right.
Essentially, pursuit of happiness is saying, well, everything's allowed until we come down on it.
Yeah.
Well, the manufacturing and packaging of homogeneous experience is what politics in America is about. Now, perception is reality is the code phrase for the Bush campaign.
Right.
The packaging of experience, of homogeneous experience in the entertainment world is what you guys are, the wild card that represents. I mean, you're not the only people who do it, but you're the most visible and the most successful in the sense that, you know, a lot of people have trouble with going to a Dead show and not knowing what's going to happen. And having someone say, well, they might just noodle like this all night and it might never get anywhere.
Right.
And they say, well, why is this a big deal? And which is a weird question, because they're saying, why don't they say the same things 13 and a half minutes into the show, just like, I won't name other entertainers, but any other entertainer, you go to a show, they're doing the same show, it's absolutely orchestrated.
What we're doing is not entertainment. I mean,
It's entertaining.
It's entertaining, but it's not entertainment.
But the pursuit is not. The pursuit goes well beyond entertainment.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a spiritual quest for us.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual quest for the people who come.
Yeah.
And what that has to do with family isn't that what really defines, that's what Jesus said, isn't it? Was, you leave your family.
Yeah.
And
join my family.
And join my family.
Right, that's exactly
And
right.
a lot of people interpret that to mean, well, that means I have to join the church. But another interpretation might be, let's cut loose what you were given.
Right.
And find what you can see.
And invent it, right? Invent it again. Rebirth it, you know. Yeah. Right.
Well, here's another thing, in talking about entertainment and family, that happens at Grateful Dead shows. That's a difference, which is the audience is a big part of the show.
Absolutely.
Everyone is there to blow everyone else's mind.
Yeah.
The way they dress, the way they make eye contact, the way they dance.
Yeah. People have a custodial feeling about the Grateful Dead.
And getting up and dancing, I mean, I'm sure you remember there was a point a long time ago at most rock and roll shows where people started sitting on the floor.
That's right.
I remember at the Avalon,
sure.
people started sitting on the floor.
We were a dance band. We played for people who were dancing. Our audience danced.
They didn't clap on what came on.
Yeah, right.
And dancing it's a family of the moment.
That's right.
This person who's dancing next to me, I don't know who they are
But
or what their thing is, but
right.
we are together
That's
now.
right. That's right. Yeah.
There's a big hunger for that because it's removed to some degree.
Absolutely, there is a big hunger for it. Yeah, sure. Just the sheer joy of doing it.
Well, a lot of the family crew that puts this together really has to do with this kind of, well, it's part technology and part methodology, but it's to create this experience. And the experience is a place in which the family celebrates. That, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to find what it is that we're saying here that translates to the theme of family.
Well, we have a hard. The whole thing. Well, it's hard to. These are all things that are hard to express. It's they don't. The experience isn't captured very conveniently by verbal stuff. You know, that's why it is what it is. That's why it is an experience. That's why we play it instead of sitting around and talk about it. You know? I mean,
yeah. Basically, our concerts are a family fishing trip. And, you know, we go fishing and the audience sort of helps us along and we catch what we catch.
right.
There is a time, there's that feeling at the end of a line where there's something live there.
Right. Yeah.
And that's...
Sometimes it's throw it back.
Right, that's right.
Throw it back.
That's
It's
right.
ugly. You don't want to look at it.
Or sometimes it's a boot.
Right.
It's really not alive.
Yeah, big deal. You know.
Or sometimes it's too big, sometimes it's too little.
Right.
But
And sometimes it's wonderful.
Right.
But there is this kind of electrical switch that goes on sometimes.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
When you've caught it, everyone knows it.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing of knowing unmistakably that there's something phenomenal happening.
And
And you're a
sometimes
part of it intimately.
when you bring someone to a show for the first time,
Well, that's
and
famous
something
experience.
starts happening,
Right.
and everybody is tremendously excited,
Right.
and there's no clue
Right.
to what exactly that is.
No, that's the nature of it, is that it doesn't lend itself. Well, that's why it has to happen. That's why it happens in that format. It requires something else to exist. You know what I mean? Its existence doesn't loan it. Doesn't. It isn't something you talk about, and it isn't something that you can conjure up. You know, verbally very well. I mean,
Right.
some people are better at it than others, certainly, but the escape, you know, the feeling of something momentous.
The feeling of escape, and you just do it. It's not just that you buy a ticket.
No.
It's that you help make
That's
the...
Right.
It's you have to be there. It
You
belongs
kick
to
in.
the moment, right? And that's all that stuff has to do with a lot of just the way we've developed things. I mean, why it's okay for people to tape the shows, you know, because even so, there's no way you can bottle up the experience. You can take the notes home, but that experience is one you had to be there.
That's right. And that tape to someone who was there, who had an experience, has a meaning that's encoded in it that's not the kind you can sell.
No, it isn't. It's personal. It's personal, and it also it has that thing of it has that kind of thing going for it that it is what each person wants it to be. It doesn't need for everybody to agree as to its nature. You know, everybody can have their own version of what its nature is. They can invent their own mythology around it. They can do whatever they want with it as an idea. But the experience has its own value. That's one of it's liberating in that sense, that everybody invents what it is. You know?
Well, I call it make your own fun,
Yeah, make your own fun.
as
exactly.
opposed to consume fun like a package of Spam.
That's right. Make your own fun.
And you go to a party that has a large deadhead element in it.
Yeah,
You will see that people will
make
start
their own fun.
making their own
That's
fun,
right.
you know.
They're inventive, exactly.
I don't feel bad at a party like that when someone is playing the guitar to
No.
go get a glass from the kitchen and a spoon
playing.
and start playing. I mean,
No, because you
heck,
know
I'm
that
not a
you do it.
musician, but I'm
No,
part
but
of the
you know
fun.
You're part of the fun, absolutely, and then you're part of what's inventing it, and part of what's experiencing it. Yeah, and it's there. It's all. Yeah, people there are making it happen as much as the musicians are. And That was interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else that I could continue drawing stuff out of you, but I sort of feel like we've gotten to the
we've
moment.
said what we can say about it. I mean, anymore we're laboring it. You know.
Okay, fine. Let's cut
I
it
mean,
there.
actually, if that magazine wants any more family stuff from the Grateful Dead, it needs other family members.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, now here was a question I had, which is someone who seems to me to be an invisible person in this interview who would have things to say would be Mountain Girl. Or I don't know, who else? Who else would you say?
Well,
would have
she's
something?
not that involved lately, you know. I mean, she's got a life of her own that she's going, but I'm almost anybody here in the office, for example, would be good. And Eileen upstairs is a good example. And
Yeah,
she's
she would be
intimately
great.
involved with Deadheads. She talks. She's the voice of the Grateful Dead to Deadheads on the level of who they talk to, what voice, what human they speak to when they speak to the Grateful Dead. That's who they speak to.
Mm-hmm.
She represents the Grateful Dead probably in a more realistically more than almost anybody else does on a one-to-one. So her perception, I think, is real important. She knows more about that than I think almost anybody. Nobody ever talks to her.
Huh.
And I think she's got a real special perception.
Gee, if I had control of this article, that's what I would immediately do.
Right.
I think probably knowing interview, what they want are you guys
Probably.
saying this. But if
We can get some quotes from her, though. You can
Yeah.
get some good stuff. And, you know, aside from that, you might want to talk to anyone on the road crew.
Yeah.
Because the road crew is, like, for instance, if we were, you know, an old-time family, a tribe back in, way back when, we're the hunting party. We go out and bring home the game or whatever, and we're, you know, we're that element of the family, and there's that perspective. But actually, hers is a really broad one.
is she here now?
Yeah, I think so. Upstairs, isn't she? I haven't heard
Most
her
likely.
today, but she's probably here. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll go see if I can get her to talk a little bit. If they can use it,
Sure.
we'll use it.
Oh, I think you ought to. Yeah, because like I say, her sense of she is that part of the family which talks to the larger family. You know, she talks to them.
Okay.
specifically. Yeah, she's good.
If
She
you need,
runs the whole Deadheads thing. You know?
if you need more on any particular subject, we or a sub-subject that we touched on, Dennis has our numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun for me.
I'm glad
I appreciate
you consented to do it. I couldn't
Yeah.
think of anybody who would be more of a better person to talk to about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. So I got the idea. Let's just jam on the idea of family and not
Great.
do a regular interview and make it a little bit more fun than usual. So
Right, who else
Yeah.
are they talking to?
I don't know. Good question.
Because this is really coming. They didn't pick Howard. We
Right.
picked Howard.
Right.
And Dennis is he's the only conduit to.
Right.
I guess they just said we would like to get a piece on families from you guys. Who would you like to interview yet?
Right.
Something like that.
Well, I was gratified to get the message. I got it from John McIntyre.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought, well, gee, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, I went back and I read that ancient book that Reich did, the
Oh,
interview with you.
Right.
And you said, well, you should put secret messages in your book. And I do put secret messages in my books. And I thought, great, Jerry got the secret message.
It all the time.
So, magic does work. Well, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Interview with Eileen Law of the Grateful Dead office, 41791. Interviewer Howard Rheingold.